This is Verity, a hero in training. Verity and two other friends of mine, Kaiser the gentle German Shepherd and Tank the Rottweiler, will help me explain the complex relationship between neutering and behaviour. As a guide dog, Verity's development is closely supervised. In the UK, where I live, it costs £55,000 to support a guide dog from birth to retirement, with funds sourced almost entirely from public donations. Charities literally can't afford mistakes, which means they literally can't afford their dogs to be easily distracted, excitable, fearful, aggressive, or crippled by arthritis. So, with all the controversy surrounding neutering, in particular the timing of neutering, how should a charity protect their most valuable assets? The British charity Guide Dogs, who've taken care of blind people and their dogs since 1931, castrate all non-breeding male guide dogs at 8 months and spay females after their first season. I quote, "Unneutered male dogs are often easily distracted by female dogs in season and may try to escape to find a mate. They can also react negatively towards other dogs and may become territorial. Similar behavioural changes can also be experienced by a female dog who may become restless, easily distracted, and attract unwanted male attention." 8 months or after the first season. Have Guide Dogs UK, who have so much at stake, got their priorities wrong? Are they harming their puppy's skeletal development, and are they inadvertently increasing the risk of unwanted behaviours like excitability, anxiety, and aggression? No, no, and no. Let's examine the facts, starting with skeletal development. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. For X to cause Y, X must precede Y. Retrievers and shepherds are large breed guide dogs. Growth of the femur, which is the longest bone in a large breed dog's body, is 95% complete by 7 months. Guide Dogs' policy of neutering at 8 months provides a 14% margin of error for skeletal development. By 8 months, puppies with genes that code for hip or elbow dysplasia have or haven't developed hip or elbow dysplasia. What happens after this stage is progression of a pre-existing condition, not development of a new condition. In other words, by 8 months, the skeletal development ship has sailed and neutering cannot sink it. At this point, I should discuss the studies that show that large breed dogs don't reach skeletal maturity until 18 months. But I can't discuss the studies which show that large breed dogs don't reach skeletal maturity until 18 months because there are no studies which show that large breed dogs don't reach skeletal maturity until 18 months. This 18 months anecdote doesn't come from published studies, it's a myth. And like so many myths, it was created to defend a preconceived belief from an unwelcome truth. Guide Dogs' decision to add a 14% margin of error is perfectly reasonable. But shifting the goalposts from 7 months to 18 months, a 157% margin of error, is irrational. Guide Dogs UK make decisions based on experience and scientific evidence, and there's plenty of scientific evidence showing improved behaviour after neutering. For example, this study reported a 90% reduction in roaming, 80% reduced mounting, 62% reduced intermale aggression, and 50% reduced urine marking in castrated dogs. Another study produced similar results, showing significant improvements in urine marking, mounting, and roaming in 6 out of 10 castrated dogs. Veterinary researchers aren't the only experts studying the impact of neutering on dog behaviour. This study, published in a human healthcare journal, reported that 1 in every 50 emergency room admissions was for a dog bite injury. Male dogs accounted for 7 out of 10 bites, and the attack rate was highest for children. Sadly, around a third of children under 4 were bitten on the face. A 2017 systematic review published in another human healthcare journal found evidence that intact dogs were associated with an increased risk of dog bite in 5 out of 6 studies. The authors of this paper, published in the prestigious journal Pediatrics, urged doctors to, I quote, advise parents that failure to neuter a dog and selection of male dogs may increase the risk of their dog biting a non-household member, who often may be a child. Male dogs are more likely to bite. Entire dogs are more likely to bite. Failure to neuter puts children at risk. These aren't my words. They're quotes from the published literature. And not just any published literature. They're from prestigious high-impact journals. If you found yourself growing increasingly frustrated by this literature review, I don't blame you. It's an unbalanced argument. For a start, testosterone isn't the only factor which influences behaviour. Secondly, castration might effectively decrease aggression in some dogs, but the minority experience a complete turnaround. In other words, our responsibilities in managing unwanted behaviours don't start and finish with neutering. And thirdly, sweeping conclusions about the dangers of entire males are plain wrong. Which brings us to my next example, Kaiser, the gentle German Shepherd. When Kaiser and I first met, he was 8 years old and entire. He'd endured something I'd never seen before, and I sincerely hope I'll never see again. Chemical burns to all 4 paws. I cannot overstate the severity of his injuries. To save his life, I'd need to surgically reconstruct all 4 of Kaiser's paws. He'd need multiple operations and daily bandage changes for weeks or maybe months. I honestly didn't believe we could do it, and this is what I told Kaiser's family. They wanted to give him a chance, so we did. My team and I reconstructed Kaiser's feet, and we did the intensive rehab, and this story had a very happy ending. But according to the published literature, Kaiser, an entire German Shepherd, is about as dangerous as a dog can get. Except Kaiser was lovely for every minute of every day from the moment we met to the day we said goodbye. Where's the published research which proves that entire male dogs aren't all excitable, anxious, and aggressive? Here it is. At first glance, the results of this 2018 study seem little different from previous neutering research. On average, entire dogs had poorer recall, and they were more likely to urinate indoors or howl when left alone. But dig a little deeper and you'll find that on average, entire dogs or dogs who were castrated later in life scored better on 26 behaviours, including aggression. Dig deeper still and you'll find an intriguing result. Dogs who remained entire for longer were less likely to mount objects, including furniture and people. We all know mounting behaviour isn't purely related to high testosterone. After all, many female dogs love humping things. But a significantly higher risk for dogs with lower testosterone doesn't ring true. So how can we explain this apparent paradox? The answer lies in the study design. This study collected data via a voluntary online questionnaire. Let's picture 3 dog owners with various attitudes to neutering. Our first owner has a male dog with behavioural problems. She knows that testosterone is an anabolic steroid, and she understands that it plays a key role in sexual motivation and aggression. So she won't be surprised if her dog becomes less boisterous, sexually motivated and aggressive after castration, which in his case is what happened. Owner 1's dog improved. Our second owner's dog is an entire male who is very well behaved. Owner 2 holds a staunch belief that male dogs should not be castrated. He wishes everyone could see that entire male dogs can be well behaved, and he is, of course, 100% correct. Owner 3 doesn't know what she should do. Her young male dog is a good boy, but he guards his toys and recently tried to bite her 5-year-old son. Her local veterinarian recommended castration. Owner 3's dog became less possessive after his operation. So owner 1 gets what she expected. She has no motivation to seek out and complete an online questionnaire. Owner 2 is different. He hears about the questionnaire and grasps his opportunity. He shares the link with like-minded friends who also complete the questionnaire. If owner 3 completes the questionnaire, her experience won't count because this study excluded dogs who were castrated following veterinary advice. This study provides valuable information. It tells us there are plenty of well-behaved entire male dogs, but a serious design flaw generated spurious results. Entire males are not less likely to mount people and furniture. And it is not a good idea, as the authors suggested, to castrate male guard dogs to make them more aggressive. And the theory that sex hormones play a role in, I quote, proofing dogs against fearfulness in later life is at best tenuous. If castration at 8 months made dogs more fearful, Guide Dogs UK, who've spent 93 years training fearless dogs, simply wouldn't do it. Perhaps you disagree. Perhaps you believe guide dog charities are indeed making a mistake. If so, you have every reason to doubt the credibility of studies which show neutering improves behaviour, and no reason to question a study which suggests otherwise. If the evidence supports our personal beliefs, why would we question its quality? Of course, guide dogs aren't a typical example of the general dog population. We must also consider dogs who were already fearful before being neutered. Street dogs, for instance. They're territorial, surviving on food handouts, but they're often shy and manifest their fear by flight or fight. In 2011, 17.4 million dog bites were reported in India alone. Dog bites account for at least 96% of human rabies cases, and once symptoms develop, rabies has a 100% mortality rate, killing an estimated 59,000 people every year, most of whom are children. Southeast Asian governments face a stark choice: control the street dog population by culling dogs, or adopt a catch, sterilise, vaccinate and return policy. Fortunately, the latter is significantly more effective. Trap and release neutering programs decreased the stray dog population in some countries by 75% and dramatically reduced the incidence of human dog bites. In fact, these programs are so effective that Indian law protects street dogs against other forms of population control, including relocation and poisoning. But is the Indian government, who has so much to lose, making a mistake? In depriving street dogs of their sex hormones, are they making them more fearful and therefore more likely to bite humans? And should the Indian government vasectomize males instead of castrating them? No, no, and no. I'm going to wrap up with some personal perspective, which means introducing you to my last helper, Tank the Gentle Giant. As an orthopaedic specialist, I treat many Rottweilers. They're prone to a knee ligament problem called cruciate disease, CCL injury, or ACL rupture. The name cruciate disease was coined because it's rarely caused by trauma alone. The top 3 risk factors are breed, overfeeding, and neutering. The latter are codependent because it's easier to overfeed a neutered dog. On average, they burn fewer calories and they're more food motivated than entire dogs. So Rottweilers are genetically predisposed to joint problems, and according to the published literature, they're also prone to aggression. This study, for example, cited it as a contributing cause of death for 9 out of 10 Rottweilers who died under 3 years old. No such worries for Tank, but let's picture another Rottie who's not so fortunate. Sherman's daily walks are best described as traumatic. The mere sight of another dog sends him into a frenzy, dragging his helpless owner off her feet day after day. This isn't just a nightmare for Sherman's owner and the unfortunate recipients of his aggression. It clearly causes severe stress to Sherman himself. His owner knew a calmer Sherman would be a much happier dog, but her tireless efforts seemed to make no difference. Although it broke her heart, she surrendered Sherman to a shelter, which is where I meet him, and it's love at first sight. But in this hypothetical scenario, I'm only allowed to adopt Sherman if I castrate him now when he's 9 months old. Would I do it? The answer is an unequivocal yes. For me, Sherman's gender is irrelevant. I'm not bothered if he's male, female, or neither. And I'm not worried that a castrated Sherman might lie awake at night mourning his lost masculinity. My only concern is Sherman's physical and mental health. Here are the facts. My immediate concern is his aggression. I won't pretend that castrating him will instantly solve our problems, but the odds that neutering will improve his behaviour are much better than the odds that neutering will harm Sherman's joints. At 9 months, he either has developmental joint disease or he doesn't. Neutering cannot cause hip or elbow dysplasia, so they're not on my radar. The orthopaedic problem which is on my radar is Tank's problem, cruciate disease. In this high-profile 2020 University of California study, 2 out of 27 male Rottweilers neutered between 6 and 11 months suffered cruciate disease later in life. According to this study, neutering Sherman now, at 9 months, makes him only 3.5% more likely to suffer an ACL injury than leaving him intact for the rest of his life. Another study found a statistical relationship between neutering young males like Sherman and cruciate disease, but affected dogs were on average 10 years old when the injury occurred. So cruciate disease is not my immediate concern. Even so, I won't ignore Sherman's knees, not when I have powerful strategies to lower his injury risk and simultaneously optimize his quality of life. So how does a specialist veterinary orthopedic surgeon protect their own dog's knees? Here's my 3-step program. Step 1. I'll focus on 2 activities Sherman was born to do: exercise and play. He'll come running with me, and I'll find an enclosed field where we can play. The enormous health benefits of running aren't confined to physical well-being. I'm also safeguarding Sherman's mental health because we're not the only ones who get an endorphin rush from running. Dogs do too, and of course active dogs are easier to train. There's a chance that Sherman and I will cross paths with an amateur veterinary specialist while we're out running. Amateur veterinary specialists are everywhere, and in my experience, one of their favourite unhealthy tips is to tell people that puppies shouldn't run because it damages their joints. So if Sherman and I meet one of these self-appointed experts, I'll direct them to the research which proves them wrong, and I'll carry on running. Step 2. I'll let others debate the relative merits of raw versus cooked food. While they're doing that, I'll focus on Sherman's body condition. If I succeed in keeping him lean, Sherman will be 4 times less likely to suffer knee ligament degeneration compared to an overweight dog. Step 3. Very few people know more about canine joint supplements than me. I know what they can do, and I know what they can't do. What they can do is cost me a lot of money, and what they can't do is protect Sherman's joints. As I have more sense than money, I'll take the cash I'm not wasting on joint supplements and I'll invest it in pet insurance. If Sherman does eventually need a knee operation, even though I'm a board-certified surgeon, I won't be entitled to free treatment or even a substantial discount, so I'll get him the best insurance I can afford. But what if I fail? What if Sherman becomes one of those 2 in 27 Rotties who develops cruciate disease? Will I regret my decision to have him castrated at 9 months? Will I berate myself for letting him run, or rue my choice to focus on his diet instead of filling him with supplements? No, no, and no.